Hey y'all, it's Farley with Writer's Edge Podcast, and today I'm going to have a conversation with the one and only Brandon Dunn. Hi Brandon, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Farley, thanks for having me.
So here on Writer's Edge, I like to give everybody a little bit of a chance to kind of introduce themselves and tell their story. So I'll give you this time to kind of tell us who Brandon Dunn is and where you come from and where you're going.
Well, man, that's kind of a loaded question right there in itself. I'm kind of wear many hats, but right now been a rodeo clown and bullfighter for many years. And over the last, the last 2 or 3 years, I guess I've kind of crossed over into more of the barrelman routine of things in rodeo. And my son Brendel, who's 15 now, he's kind of taken over the aspects of the bullfighting.
Very cool. Let's talk about the aspects of bullfighting and kind of the mental and physical challenges of that. Through my years of doing sports medicine for the rodeo sports medicine team, I always really watch the bullfighters and have come to really enjoy that part because they're such athletes. Growing up on the timed event end of the arena, we were always getting out if we were up during the perf, getting out before the bull riding was over, going on to the next one, or just trying to beat the crowd. So I didn't really get an appreciation for the bullfighters until the kind of the last 10 years or so since I've been working on the sports medicine side of things. And I always enjoy just kind of listening to them and watching them and how they think and talk and how they work through things.
Bullfighting, and really it's evolved a bunch in the last, I'm going to say probably in the last 10 years, as far as it's always been a real mental game in fighting bulls, because you're stepping out there against a 15, 18, 2,000 pound animal who has the ability to take you out at any given time. And so, but in the last probably 10 years or so, sports nutrition and different therapies that have come along with the workout regimens and workout schedules. And I remember back when I was fighting bulls, back in the from the early 90s till about 2000. I stayed a lot of time in the gym, but nutrition wasn't really that big a thing. And since about probably 2005, 2006, the nutrition aspect of what you feed your body and what you eat has really helped in the longevity of a lot of these bullfighters. You've got guys that are going down the road now that are still fighting bulls very competitively and very good as far as the cowboy protection, because they're able to heal up quicker. And I give a lot of that to the nutrition that's out there now. Back when we were going, it was just, McDonald's and Happy Meals and all sorts of burritos and things like that, and just go on right down to the next one. But now, they've got protein shakes and protein diets and protein this and protein that aids in the body's being able to heal itself up. So the longevity of bullfighting now, you've got guys that are, like I say, they're in their 30s. I know some guys that are even 40 years old that are still very competitive and being able to go out there and to do their job successfully night after night. And when they do get hurt, their rehab time is just almost cut in a third, and they're back out there in the arena, where it wasn't that way so much back when I was still fighting bulls previous to that.
Yeah, it's the nutrition part of the game has changed so much, and within all aspects of rodeo, where everybody's becoming more of that athlete mindset and trying to get better, stronger, faster, and push through and rehab quicker. And nutrition is a huge aspect to that, along with what little bit of hanging out with some of the guys at Pendleton or the American semifinals, and just kind of watching their routine and everything. They're these bullfighters, gosh, they're in the gym and they're hell of an athletes, and I would almost put them up against anybody else in rodeo as being the top athlete, because gosh, these guys are training and filming and doing, I mean, it's just kind of exploded.
And it's neat to see on scene now, because the Wrangler bullfights kind of died out in 2000 actually. The Wrangler bullfights that you see at the PRCA rodeos kind of died out, and here recently they've come back out with like the BFOs and the AFBs, Bullfighters Only, American Federation of Bullfighting. They've got all kinds of different levels of this bullfight has made a comeback. And maybe some people don't understand what the bullfight is. A lot of times I get asked the question, you're a bullfighter or you're a barrel man. So what does that mean? What do? You go out there with a red cape. And that's not, a lot of times that's the connotation that people have of what a bullfighter is. But actually the sport of bullfighting evolved from bull riding. They would have guys that would come out there and protect the bull riders. And they would help in aiding the bull's turn back, which would give the bull rider a higher score, help them get off and get safely to the fence and on to the next rodeo. But then it got to, like, in the early 80s, they come out with the Wrangler bullfights that was able to showcase a bullfighter's athletic ability, where it was just one-on-one between that bullfighter and at that time it was a Mexican fighting bull. And so they would have a 70-second freestyle match, kind of like a game of tag out on the playground when you was a kid. And you would get points for how close you got to the bull, how well and how you stayed in control of the fight, how well you handled that animal. We called that bull savvy, knowing where the bull's going to be, how to adjust the movements of the bull, how to be able to control the animal. And then, of course, you got points deducted every time that you got hooked or you got hit or something like that. And so that the sport itself has evolved. And then, like in 2000, when the bullfights quit, it just kind of died off. And so you still had guys working rodeos and working bull ridings and PBRs and things like that. And then just recently, it's all picked back up. And so it's really an extreme sport that's kind of become, I think it's going to be a mainstay in the rodeo world, because it's taken it to another extreme again. And you've got these athletes that are out there that, just like you said, they live in the gym. If they're not on the road driving, I mean, they even pull over to get their routine and their workout for that day. These guys don't skip a day. And so, but my aspect of it now is, I'm 45 years old, so time and Father Time has caught up with me, and as well as injuries and other things, that I'm not as agile as I used to be. I would give anything if I could turn the clock back and be able to fight bulls and be 20 years old again. But we know that's just not realistic. But what I find myself doing now that I really enjoy is being a barrel man. And the same thing, back in the old days when you were a barrel man, you were considered kind of just an old washed up guy that just, you couldn't rope, you couldn't ride, you couldn't fight bulls anymore. You were just kind of what's the bottom of the barrel. And that's not true at all. There's the same routines we barrel men do a lot, just like the bullfighters. We have the same workout schedule. We have nutrition. That's a big thing, because these bullfighters are depending on the barrel man. Every time that bull comes out there and he gets in a jam, well, it's the barrel men that come out there and pull their butts literally out of the fire and take the shots in that barrel. And I remember when I made the transition, the first time a bull ever hit that barrel, I fell in love with it, because I felt like I was fighting bulls again, like I did when I was 17 years old. My mouth would get all dry. I didn't have no spit. My heart was just a pumping. But, man, I could still take those licks, and then I could entertain the crowd while I did it. And so that's another aspect of what I do, is not only a bullfight, a barrel man for the bullfighters itself, but I also entertain the crowd. I've got several new acts that I'm carrying with me this year that I am just super, super excited about. These acts, and I entertain the crowd. I do a lot of promotional stuff in and for the rodeos, and I'm really looking forward to 2020 year.
Oh, that is so exciting to hear, Brandon. I'm excited. I'm excited for what 2020 is going to bring for everybody. Let's move. 2019 can move along now, and let's go to 2020.
No doubt.
Let's talk a little bit more about the entertaining aspect and the barrel man, and let's break it down a little bit more, because I've really, when I'm in the trailer, it's usually I'm usually working with the bullfighters who are there on the front line, and then we have Rumford or whoever the entertainer is for that rodeo. That's the barrelman, and they may or may not have something going on. But I'm really curious. Let's talk more about the barrelman's role during the bull riding, and then let's talk a little bit more about the entertaining aspect of rodeo.
Okay, well, that the barrelman's role. Let's just break it down into the category, like you said, like during the bull riding, we are kind of the secondary island of safety out there, not only for the bull rider itself, but also for the bullfighters. So when the bull is bucking and doing his performance, and the bullfighters are there to protect the cowboy, we move in as a secondary, kind of like a little island of safety, to come in there. So if that bull is really bad and he's really hooky, or if the cowboy gets in a storm, we have a place for that cowboy, because sometimes when they hit the ground, they don't know which way is north, south, east, or west. They just take off running. And sometimes, so we can run traffic control sometimes and get that bull rider behind the barrel, give him an island of safety, and let the bullfighters do their job. And then in the case that a bullfighter gets in trouble, whether he gets down or a bull gets him lined out, that barrel is right there to be a distraction or to be an island of safety that a bullfighter can come and get behind the barrel and let the barrel take the shots. And so you got to have a lot of bull savvy as to know when to move in, especially with bulls that we have today, because these bulls, with the new breeding program that they have and the Born to Buck program, these bulls are made to buck. I mean, that's what they are raised, designed, and bred to do. So they come out there, and these bulls, you want to be able to stay what we call a bubble. You want to stay out of the bull's bubble, but you want to be right there just in case, where you can take one step and get his attention. But you don't want to make the bull mess up by getting in there too early and he's not able to buck to his full potential. And so it's a lot more than just painting your face and getting a round barrel and just climbing out there. And a lot of people think that that's what it is, but there's a lot of behind the scenes bull savvy, cow savvy knowledge that a guy has to have, either as a bullfighter or as a barrelman, on the protection aspect of it. Now, for the entertainment aspect, which I really love, because there's always been a huge tie between kids and clowns, a huge tie between that. And so I try to keep my entertainment pretty family wholesome. Sometimes there's some guys on the road nowadays that, they kind of cross the line, what I wouldn't really consider to be family entertainment, but it's not, real vulgar. But I try to keep everything pretty wholesome and pure, that the 88-year-old will get it as well as the 8-year-old. And so it adds performance to the whole rodeo when you're able to entertain those people who come in here, who pay their hard-earned money down. And so my entertainment goes anything from jokes. I'll tell jokes in if there's a lull in the rodeo, like they have a bareback horse that they're having a hard time getting out on, or getting him out of the arena, or sometimes on the timed event, you'll have a barrier that breaks down, or you'll have a calf that gets turned around in the chute and they have to reload them. And so there's some downtime there. And so that's where my job is. I come in there and I step up during that downtime and I'll entertain the crowd. And then usually each rodeo that I go to, we have a specific time that we have. It's kind of like a little lull in the rodeo, but they allow me to do what we call clown acts. And so I'll come out there and I'll do a 8 to 10 minute skit with different acts that I have. I've got some magic act type stuff that I do that's comical and funny. I've got a brand new act that I've just come out, and it's based off kind of a spoof off the old Top Gun movie with Tom Cruise. And I just found out that Top Gun 2020 is coming out. It's called The Maverick, and it should be airing like in June, I think, of 2020. And so I found me this plane that I found on Facebook from a friend of mine had it. And I've been trying to buy this plane for him forever, and he just never would sell it. It's a cool little plane. It's got a Corvair engine in it. And so I finally got that thing bought, and I'm taking it out on the road this year. And it's kind of a spoof off the old the Top Gun movie 2020, where I come in there and I crash land this plane out in the arena. And the announcer, we go through the spiel, and he's trying to get me out of the arena and ask me what I'm doing. And I mean, I am the Maverick. I've got the flight suit and everything. I am the Maverick. And so I'm really excited about this act. I've run it a couple times already. I'm getting ready to run it again at the IFR showcase here in January. And I've already had booking several rodeos just off that act alone, because it's something that's going to be fresh. It's something new. It's something nobody's ever seen before. And I'm really excited about that aspect of it as well.
Well, and that's really cool because that's going to bridge a gap. We're always talking within the industry of how to bring new rodeo fans in and bring people in, because it's rodeo, while we who've grown up in it, like it's our life and our living and what we do and what we know, for rodeo to continue to evolve, we've got to continue to bring in the general public. And it's a bridge into agriculture, where I very much feel like society is getting away from, and that's where a lot of issues are in society, that we don't have the ag background on the whole as we used to. So your Top Gun Act is great because it's going to be a bridge there, right? So that people can relate to that and continue to draw them in, so they have something relatable while they're learning a lot of new things about rodeo and how we go and do.
You're talking about how it seems like society is moving away from agriculture and the Western way of life. That's one thing I also really enjoy about my job in the rodeo and during a performance, because usually a rodeo lasts around 2 hours or so. And to me, that's a chance for me to go out there when families, we live in such a fast-paced lifestyle anymore that it's hard for families just to get together and just to forget about maybe the bills that's due, or the dog that just died, or whatever the case may be, real life issues. And it's a chance for me to get those people for 2 hours and to provide them entertainment where they can, and it's family entertainment, where maybe they can just laugh, or they can just, I don't mind making fun of myself, doing silly things out there, whatever it is, to take their mind off of whatever the problems that they have, that they can just relax and be themselves and enjoy the family time together. And that's been probably one of the biggest compliments, and it'll probably be the biggest award that I would ever earn. Is I had a family come to me one year in Cold Springs, Texas, and they said, you know what, this is the first time that we have got together and we have laughed and laughed and laughed. Of course, it was at my expense, and I absolutely loved it. But he said, they were in the process, they had some sick children, and it was the first time that they've been able to get out and just experience and enjoy each other's company and forget about the problems in the past. And being able to do that, it gets your rodeo back, for one thing. I mean, it helps you get the rodeo back in Cold Springs again, but it also, it's something about it that just makes you feel good that you were able to put it all on the line and be someone can poke fun of you and make fun of you. And that's my job. And that's what I enjoy to do. And I enjoy to make people laugh, and they can forget about their troubles if it's just for 2 hours. We live in such a fast-paced time, and there's troubles everywhere. And these people can just forget about that for 2 hours and just enjoy themselves and be a family. I absolutely love that part of it.
Oh, I love that story. And that's what it's all about. I've been in the process of writing a couple blog posts, and a couple of the last few episodes on the podcast were about, just kind of more of character and life lessons, which takes a little bit of turn off of the health and wellness aspect of Writer's Edge. But, that's what it's all about, because, being able to commune with people and build relationships, and let's pull everything down for a minute and not be so fast paced. I mean, we're all that way. I'm that way. If my my BFF and if we don't do the Marco Polo in the morning, or we don't get a text answered that quick, there's proof of life text going out, and are you okay, and da-da-da, when everything's fine. But we live in that whole demand, fast-paced, swipe it now kind of world, and that's where rodeo has a unique corner of the market. It's still the same show, but we're making it more relatable and allowing people to slow down, even if it is only for 2 hours.
And that's the cool thing. Nowadays too, when you go to these rodeos, they generally have a special time where they pull in like a kids rodeo, or we'll have a kids rodeo that morning, or we'll have a special needs rodeo, to where not only me, but whoever's out in each specific event will show up that morning and spend time with these children, whether they just be from special needs children or whether they be from foster homes or just kids that just need an arm around them and say, you know what, hey, you are somebody, you are something. Come be a part of what we got here. And to see those kids light up, man, there's no better experience in the world. I don't think any gold buckle at all could ever touch what you can do to a child or to a human being when you bring them into your world and say, hey, you are a part of this. There's something bigger here than just rodeo. You are a part of this world, and to make them feel special like that, man, there's no greater feeling in the world than that.
Oh, absolutely. Nobody's going to remember who won. The only people that are going to remember who won that gold buckle are the people close to that person that won the gold buckle, as years go by and we continue to move forward. But, even those experiences with the Exceptional Rodeo or the meet and greets, I was blessed to be able to go to Las Vegas with Donna Kay, and the camaraderie and the experience of everybody on her team. Like, that's what everybody's going to remember, years from now. And we'll tell those silly stories, not who had the fast time. And we'll remember round 2 and round 5, but we won't remember who had the fast time in round 6 or whatever. It's about people, and it's about our horses and our bulls and our relationships.
That's right. Yeah, most definitely.
So another question I have for you, and we'll kind of flip around here and do I'll throw out a silly pun of something like we'll do a spin here real quick. Let's talk about, you talked earlier about bull savvy. And I feel like bull savvy is a lot how I talk about feel with horses or feel with my therapy. It's something you either have or you don't. If you do have it, you can learn and grow and get better at. But let's take your thoughts on bull savvy, as it were.
It's funny how you relate that to the feel of a horse, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Being raised by a barrel racer, married a barrel racer, and have a barrel racer growing up in my house, my daughter, I understand and able to kind of relate that to what you're saying with the horses. And you're exactly right. It's pretty much the same thing, that bull savvy. You have a lot of guys in the bullfighting industry today that are, man, they are naturally gifted athletes. I mean, these guys could go and they could be the all-star quarterback of a football team. They could be the best soccer player or the best basketball player. And they can also be a good bullfighter just simply based off their athleticism. But there's something about when you see a guy who is raised around cattle, whether he's been on a farm or a ranch or worked in a feedlot, who understands the movement of that bull or of a cow, who understands how they move, how they think, what their next step is going to be. Back when I was still fighting bulls, I was at a rodeo in Sterling, Colorado, and Leon Coffey was the barrelman there. And we was fighting a bull for Mike Serby, and he was a great big old Bramer bull, had a big old wide head on him, and I never could get this bull to hook up to me at all. And I asked Leon, I said, Leon, why won't this bull chase me? I mean, I can't, he'll run at me, but he'll always run by me. And he said, Brandon, he said, I want you to look at something. He said, stand back and look at that bull head on and tell me what you see, or tell me what you don't see. And so I was looking at this bull, and you couldn't see his eyes. His head was so wide that his eyes were placed on the side of his head. He said, that's anaconda of immunity. And I thought, Leon, what are you feeding me here? This is some kind of bull. He said, no, it's called anaconda of immunity. That bull cannot see you. So he went inside his trailer before the performance started that night, and he pulled out a towel, just an old bath towel. And he said, I want you to put this in your pocket, and when you call for that fighting bull, when you call for him, I want you to wave that flag, just throw it to your side, and then step the other way. Well, sure enough, I did that, and I wrapped the bull up, and I won the round on him that night, because he never could see me before. And so that's some of that bull savvy that I'm talking about. That's something that Leon had seen from, 50 years of fighting bulls. and he comes out and he shares those little tricks that bull can't see you because his eyes are so wide, his head's so wide that you have to catch his attention, that when he turns his head, now you're in his side of vision. And it's the little things like that. It's the little tricks that you learn from being around cowboys, from being around guys who have been down the road and learning that bull savvy. Now, I've tried to explain to some of these young guys that are going down the road now that are natural athletes. I cannot take anything away from their athletic ability, but they do not understand the anatomy of a bull. They don't understand why that bull won't see him, or they don't understand how that bull moves and when to keep him bent, which lead that he's going to follow. My son, I got to brag on him a little bit because he's 15 years old, and man, he's fighting bulls really good this year. But he understands when that bull comes out of the chute, it's not something he's got to look at. He already knows what lead that bull is in. And that's something you try to talk to these guys at these schools nowadays, and you're trying to explain what lead the bull's in and which way you need to go and to break them down and to cross them over. And you go to using that terminology, and these kids are like, man, they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. They have the athletic ability, and I can't take that away from them. These guys can run circles around me as far as being an athlete. But then there's that bull savvy and that feel like you're talking about with the horse. Sometimes you either got it or you don't. It's not something that you can really teach someone. It's something that you have or you don't have.
Absolutely. And if you innately have it, then you can expand on it and improve on it. Just like I know Brindle does all the time. And some of these other guys, you can continue to even within that story with Leon, continue to progress with it. But if you don't have it, then I don't know. I don't know where that takes you or how you get there.
No, there's guys that it's just funny to me, just the athleticism of these guys. They can pull off a lot of things that I couldn't pull off with their athletic ability. But when you have that bull savvy, man, it just saves you so many steps. Your moves are effortlessly. You can effortlessly and flawlessly perform those moves because you know how to read that bull. You know that when to step and when not to step and which direction to go, and you're not just running wild and crazy. And man, if a guy can ever feel that and get a hold of that, then I mean, there's not a bull that they couldn't get around.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can have your athleticism and your bull savvy, then you're just kind of the complete package there. And then have your nutrition in there, your workout, and a good sports medicine team to help you keep going down the road.
Yeah. That's right.
Even if they have to FaceTime or get on the Zoom and go, I can't hear you, but I can see you.
Yeah, we're more bull savvy than we are tech savvy around this place. I promise you.
Oh, yes. My Claire, who does all the sound and production on here, she would agree because I have tech fails every day, but I can go to the barn and take care of anything I need to take care of. Oh.
Yeah, my wife can smell horse poop and know what vitamin, but doesn't know how to turn on the computer.
Yeah. Well, we all have our priorities, Brandon. We all have our priorities. So I know besides doing the Barrelman stuff and the entertaining and the rodeo clowning, something else that is super important to you is your family, and you're also a pastor and have led a lot of services. So let's talk about how that's important to you and how that works in your life.
Well, Farley, you're absolutely right. Above all else, my faith in God is absolute top priority above everything else in my life, as even my family and rodeo. There were years and years. I've been around rodeo my whole life, my whole entire life. I've been around rodeo. I had an uncle that fought bulls. My mom's run barrels. My dad dog steers. We've been around the Western way of life. Dad's managed ranches. We see all these things. And there was a point in time in my life, I always knew I wanted to be a bullfighter. And kind of share a little background story. I always knew I wanted to be a bullfighter, and I fought bulls. I fought my first bull when I was 13 years old, and kind of progressed from there. And at one time, I was working all the PRCA shows and some PBRs and really doing good. And I'd always said, that I was rodeoing for God. I was rodeoing for God, and I wanted to give God the glory. Well, that looked good on camera, and it looked good doing interviews like what we're doing right now. But deep down inside, man, rodeo was all about me. It was all about, what I could get from it, what I could do, me being the best. I would talk to people about God, but there's a whole lot of difference between talking and really living it out. And I believed in God, and I believed in Jesus, and there's no doubt of where my salvation was. I was a born again Christian, and I can remember the time that I did that. But as far as living and walking it out in the public, it was more lip service than anything. And in 2003, we had a bad car wreck where my uncle had actually been in the hospital in Wichita Falls, where a Mexican bull had got him down at home, and they had to care fly him to Wichita Falls, and it like to killed him. He was in coma for a long time, and it was a bad deal. And it was Easter weekend, and we went up there to visit my uncle in the hospital. And on our way home, we were hit about 10 miles away from my house. We were hit head on by a drunk driver, and so that it killed our oldest daughter, Haley, at that time. Brenda wasn't born yet, but Laramie was 4 years old. And that just really, it brought everything down to a complete devastation is basically what it was. My faith in God was strong, and I remember crying out to Christ and crying out to Jesus, and I could feel God's presence around me, but it brought me down to a point to where, basically I lost my rodeo career now. There's no way that I'm going to be able to fight bulls. There's no way I'm going to be able to provide for my family. I was in a wheelchair for what the doctors thought I was going to be in a wheelchair for a year. I think I was in there for 8 months. I had lost a daughter, and we were not able to go to her funeral because we were in the hospital, 3 separate hospitals. We're all in different places in Wichita and in Fort Worth, and there was just a lot of time that I just sit there flat on my back, and it was just me and God, and life got real. God really got, not that God wasn't real before, but God really got real at those times that you're flat on your back. And I mean, I'm back. We had to move back into my parents' house, where basically they had to take care of us, spoon feed us, help us to the bathroom, help us to take a shower. And, I'm at that time, I'm almost 30 years old at that time. And here I am being treated like a little baby again. I'm having to be cared for. Like I have to have a caregiver, someone basically to take out my pee bottle, to help me to go to the bathroom, to help me do these things. And so I got a lot of one-on-one time with just me and God. And I think that, God, you always hear this whole statement that says that God will never put more on you than what you can handle. And I have to say that's baloney, because I think God will put anything he needs to put on you to drive you back to him. And that was a point in my life that was a very pivotal point. And it seemed like a lot of catastrophe and devastation and just tribulations and stuff that happened. But it was at that point that there was a scripture that I really claimed for myself, and it's Romans 8:28 that says, all things work together for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And that scripture just kept going over and over and over in my mind. And I would always claim that, man, I love God. I love God. How is this going to work for my good and his glory? Well, we don't always get the answers that we want right then. And we live, like we talked about earlier, in this instantaneous society where we just put it in the microwave, punch a couple buttons, in 5 minutes, we got a gourmet meal that we're ready to eat. And that's not how God works. And it's at that point that I understand that God was a lot more concerned about my character than my comfort. And so it was going through those times, and I would read Job, and I would read all these prophets and everybody that went through hard times in Scripture. And I was realized, I had a lot of people saying that, man, God just, how could God allow this to happen to you? Or how could, you always hear that, why does bad things happen to good people? And I can't explain that, but I do know that at that point in time, life got real, but God got realer, if that makes any sense. I know that's poor English, but God got more real to me because I had nothing left. Everything that Brandon had, or anything that Brandon had accomplished, was no more. And so there I was. It was me and God. And man, I could feel, Farley, and I don't mean to sound like some people understand this and some people think, man, you're just some spiritual nut. But through that time, I felt God's arms around me through all that. Losing a child, being crippled up, just not knowing what tomorrow's going to bring. Your livelihood is now gone. I didn't know if I was going to be able to walk again, to do any of the things that look at me now. I mean, God's blessed me and it's put me back in a position where it was all gone for me. But life got real and God got realer. And it was at that point that, man, I rededicated myself to him. And I had nothing else to do. I just stayed in his word. And that's where I felt my comfort. And I started understanding this more. And then it was not long after that, I had already surrendered, what they call in the ministry, surrendered to preach in 2000. And this accident happened in 2003. But like I said, I really wasn't living that lifestyle out. And at this time, man, I surrendered. I thought I'd surrendered and I thought I'd give it all to God. But it's funny how when you give it to God, you always put a little bit back in your pocket for yourself. And so I got a little story I want to share with that here in just a minute. But we rocked on, and then I was looking for a job. I mean, I didn't have a way to provide for my family. I couldn't rodeo. I couldn't do anything. And like I said, I've always loved kids, especially like teenagers. I felt like I could relate to teenagers. And I got offered a youth job in Warwick, Oklahoma. And so I took that. And then that's when things kind of got really rocky in our lives. And we had to leave that church. And I got asked to be an assistant pastor in Byers. And man, I'm growing with God. And then next thing you know, I felt like God was just calling me out to skipper my own ship, that it was time to start a church, to be able to speak to what I call just a bunch of rednecks, just a bunch of cowboys and Indian chiefs and outlaws and whoever wanted to come. But it was a place that we could get real with people. And so we started that church, and it wasn't easy. I mean, Satan battled us all uphill. And then I had noticed that as I was pouring into that church, I think there was a time, Farley, if it was to be real, that church kind of took the place of rodeo. Church was church, but God wasn't first. It was church. Now look what I've built. Look what the people are coming to hear me talk. Look at this and look at this. It took the place of rodeo. And so, God allows trials and tribulations, and there's so many other things that happen in that aspect in my life at that time that I believe it was God that was just driving me back to him, say, Brandon, it's not about you. It's about me. You need to continue the work that I have for you, not just the work that you want to do, but let me work through you in the gifts that I have given you. And so anyway, one thing led to another. And I carried, as I was going through this, I started carrying a lot of animosity because church wasn't fulfilling me. And I felt like I was just giving to the church, but I wasn't receiving anything for myself. I was serving out of an empty vessel. And in doing that, man, it's like the scripture says that Satan, he's a crafty serpent. And so he would come and he would put these negative thoughts in my mind. Man, if only you could go rodeo again. If only you could do this again. Or if only you could do that again. Or you're never going to amount to nothing. You can't fight bulls anymore. You can't, you're unhappy preaching. Your life is just going to be what it is. And my life had become a bunch of can'ts. I can't do this. I can't rodeo. I can't hardly walk. My hips won't hold together. My pelvis won't hold together. I got up to about 270, 280 pounds from being what I considered an athlete at the time. And now here I am. I'm just a couch potato. And my mind had me defeated. And one day I just put my stake in the ground and said, you know what? Enough is enough. I've had enough. I got back in the word and I said, enough is enough. And it's funny because God knows how to speak to each one of us. And I thought, I'm going to put my stake in the ground here and I've got to fight one more bull. And it wasn't about fighting a bull. It wasn't about rodeo. It was about what that represented to me, what it meant to me. It was a tangible way for me to put closure on an accident that happened in 2003. So we're rocking on now, and it's 2011, and I'm marked on the calendar. I just put my finger on the calendar, and it was 6 months to the date. I said, I'm going to get in shape. I went to a trainer. I got in God's word. I didn't listen to anything negative on TV, on the radio. It was all positive stuff. I listened to sermons after sermons after sermons. I did all this stuff it was basically a purifying, not only the outside of my body, but the inside of my body, and the way my mindset was, and the way that had let myself lapse into the negative thinking. And I fought one more bull. And that bull, what it represented to me was that's why I love the sport of bullfighting so much, is because there's so much representation that happens in that arena between a man and a bull, as what it does in life, in a guy's spiritual life outside of the arena. How you've always got Satan trying to attack you all the time, trying to take you out. And in my mind, I was able to relate the two. And that was just a tangible way for me to step back into the arena and to say, this is it. This is where it all ends right here. That bull represented all my anger, all the bitterness, all the emotions that I had in my mind. It was also the guy that hit us that night, that drunk driver. It was like a battle between good and evil in that arena. But it was a tangible way for me to get my hands. And I think a lot of guys, men in general, need a tangible something that we can just bloody our knuckles on. I mean, God created us to be providers and warriors. And this was a way that I could tangibly and physically get my hands upon something and to let it out. And so God gave me this opportunity. I mean, I went from a guy who was going to be bound to a wheelchair or I was able to walk. And then, I talked to the doctors about it, and I had a great trainer, and that put me on the sports nutrition that told me about this training that got me from 270 pounds down to 210 pounds. And I was able to run and do things that I hadn't been able to do in 11 years. And I fought that bull that night at my hometown rodeo in Henrietta, Texas. And that bull got me down. But it wasn't about fighting bulls. And I would get back up, and the bull would get me down again. And I would get back up, and I'd find myself underneath the bull again. And I didn't train on bulls. I didn't train on anything. I just trained in the gym getting ready. And remember me telling you earlier where we always put something back in our pockets. Well, God gave me two reminders that night. One of them was that the scripture says that even though a righteous man falls 6 times, he'll always rise 7. And I thought all the times that I've tripped and fallen from grace or took God's grace for granted, or the trials that happened in my life, God always brought me back. God always brought me back. And there was one representation every time that bull would get me down that, man, life's going to knock you down. And it's kind of the old Rocky Balboa saying, that it's not about how many times you get hit, but it's how many times you get up, and continue moving forward. And that's a great representation of our spiritual life. You're going to fail. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to, there's things that's just going to happen in life, and it's going to suck. But God's given you the ability and the power to stand up and to keep moving forward. And the other thing about that bull hooked me the last time, and I couldn't get away from him. For some reason, I wore those long baggy pants, like the more traditional long baggy pants, ever since I could fight bulls. And that was kind of a trademark. It was my uncle's trademark, and something I'd kind of picked up and carried along the way. And I couldn't get away from this bull. And I kept thinking his horn was hung in my suspenders. And I kept trying to break my suspenders off. And it wasn't. It wasn't until the next day I was cleaning out my bag and putting all my bullfighting stuff back in the bag. I looked at my baggies, and there in my baggies was a hole in my pocket. And it was where that bull had run his horn in my pocket, and it come out on the other side. And I'm telling you, Farley, it was just like God said, leave it there. Quit putting those things back in your pocket. Now your pockets are empty. And it was from that point right there, I felt like a new man. It was almost like a rebirth in my life, that it was like, now my pockets are empty. And I've got those baggies today. And I've been telling Emmy, man, I want to put them in a shadow box or something, because it's a great reminder for me as a guy. I always think I can do it my way. God, I want your help, but I'm going to put this back in my pocket just in case you don't do it. I'll just do it myself. Well, God, man, that night, attached to a bull's horn in my pocket, he ripped that pocket loose. And it was a great reminder that, hey, Brandon, you've always preached to us, or always preached to people about emptying your pockets, leaving it to God. Now, it was a reminder that God gave me again. And it's funny how, God redeems the time. I felt like I had wasted so much time. There was 11 years there that, I felt like I was just born to rodeo, but I always felt like I was born to preach too. We did the whole church thing, and I loved people, and I loved talking to people, and I loved sharing my faith with people. But now it's like God's brought the two together. So now I've traded a pulpit for a clown barrel, and that seemed like that's the platform that God's used me at. And there's more church services that go on at these rodeos on the back of a tailgate of a pickup, while people are just drinking beer and having a good time or whatever. But it's real. There's no false pretenses of having to come to church, and you have this pretense of what it's supposed to be, and these preconceived notions and these preconditions that people come into. It's there. And God's allowed me to not only do what I really enjoy and love in life, as far as the rodeo aspect, what I was born into, but then he's also taken the aspect of what I was born again into the faith of Jesus Christ, and able to merge the two together. And life gets real out there on the rodeo trail, and to being able to be out there and be with my peers and be able to just talk to them. They know me. They know the struggles I go through. They know that there's times that, I'm going to get mad, and I'm going to say a dirty word. I'm just the same Brandon in the church as I am out there in the arena. And we have some great services just on the back of a tailgate. And I feel like that's where God has brought us all to. And he reminds me from time to time, Brandon, it's not about you. Keep those pockets empty. So my faith in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, is the very first priority of my life. And then God has blessed me. He's blessed me with Emmy as my wife. I could not have asked for a better wife to come in who shares this love of rodeo with me. We share the love of horses and ranching and conditioning and the physical therapy things that go along with this stuff. And then I've got 2 kids of my own, and God brought me another kid with Emmy in Tucker. So now I've got 2 boys, and I've got a wonderful daughter who's 21 years old now, who's out living her life. But God's also allows us to do this together as a family. And it strengthens our house. It strengthens our marriage, as long as we continue to keep God first and foremost in our lives. And Farley, it's been awesome. It's been awesome.
Oh, Brandon, I can't even follow up with any of that. It's wow. That's exactly what I needed to hear today. And and I think I think the amazing thing when you started that story of your journey of your faith was what really resonated with me was how real, like you just said, it was good for show, it was good for the interviews, but I was not walking the walk, because I know in my own spiritual journey, and and you and Emmy and Donna Cainred have been very instrumental in that. But I struggle with people, athletes, and we've heard that a lot too, because it's a good soundbite, right? The NFR just got over, and that soundbite goes around in their rodeo arena, but I don't feel like the actions always match the words. And so for you to go through that whole journey and call out and be realer, because we do use poor English here on this podcast. We do use realer words. Because that's probably a struggle for me in talking about it with people and listening to other people, is like I need to feel the real. I need to feel that, and it's these two things. And they don't always match, because we're not perfect, and it changes and it ebbs and it flows. And, like you just said, especially for us people who are hard-headed, even though we prefer the word determined, that we get so hard-headed about that, and kind of do a miss sometimes, but then are able to come back.
There's a term that I learned here in the last couple of years, and it's a Spanish term, and it's called querencia. And what it means is, in the Spanish sport of bullfighting, when you have a lot of matadors and you have the horses and they chase the bull around before the real matador ever gets out there. And what they're looking for is this querencia, or it's the bull's safe spot. They want to figure out where he goes all the time, and where they wear him down, they tire him out. And each bull is different, but each bull will find his safe spot in the arena, a place in that arena where he feels comfortable. A lot of these times, like a lot of these crossbred bulls, most of the time their safe spot is they like to go to a corner and back their butt in a corner, and then everything is in front of them. They feel like that's their turf. And that's one thing I've really held on to, that as I'm talking about how I relate American bullfighting or rodeos into my spiritual life. I feel like a lot of times we have our own querencias, we have our own safe spot. And we talked about, how like Satan is he's so crafty and he's so cunning that he pushes us around. He pushes our buttons. He always knows what he studies us. He knows what makes us scared, what makes us want to fall, what makes us, and like I told you, he always put doubts in my mind. I would my mind was my worst enemy, and that was the devil's playground. And so I would always try to find that comfortable spot in the arena, or the comfortable spot in my life to go to. And I think sometimes that's what happens with us is when we step out in faith, whether it be in the rodeo arena, or we just step out in life, in faith, in our path with Jesus Christ, that, there's no guarantees for tomorrow, and we don't know what tomorrow holds. But the old cliche saying is, we know who holds tomorrow. And so we know who holds our hand to take us each and every day. But I think sometimes, just like I did in the whole church service thing, even into the rodeo arena, that it was like I would find my comfort zone, and this is where I'm comfortable at. And God will pull you out of your comfort zone, because he is not so much concerned about your comfort as he is your character. And so he will allow those things to happen to push you outside of your querencia, or your comfort zone. And if you think about it, once the matador in Spain, when that bull finds his querencia, what's the bull's ultimate demise? It's his death. They find him where he's comfortable, they wear him out, and then they kill the bull, and they drag him out. Man, isn't that a lot like our life? When we get comfortable, Satan will wear us down, and we find our comfort spot, and this is where we want to be, because we're comfortable. We don't want to grow. We don't want to go anywhere. And then, man, what happens? Our life is ended. And that's the way I felt that way for those 11 or 12 years, in that span where I just felt like my life it was over. It was defeated. Actually, man, it was just beginning. It was just beginning. I'm 45 years old now. I'm not the young, finely tuned athlete that I was, but man, God has pushed me out of that comfort zone, and he's used some trials and some tribulations to do it. But looking what God has blessed me with now, with a family, with a wife, with a job that I have, with able to share this faith, with doing this podcast with you, and hopefully, a lot of people will be able to hear this story. Man, if I'd have stayed in my comfort zone, I'd be big, dumb, fat, and happy right now. But now God is allowing me to grow and to share these things. And so it's just exciting part. I appreciate you doing this with me.
Oh, I appreciate it so much, Brandon. We've covered a lot of ground today in our conversation. I feel like we could continue on and on and on into the back 40. And that's what I like about this platform is we can just see where the conversation goes. I am such a fan of rodeo and the Western lifestyle, and I like talking about all aspects of it. I get caught up on the timed event end, because that's what I know, and that's where I gravitate towards. But I love talking about all of it, from our faith to our family to people, horses, bulls. Let's have a chat. So let's, Brandon, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, if they are, especially if, they're wanting to, whether it's talking about Faith, Family Bulls, Top Gun, Mavericks, what have you, how can they reach out and get a hold of you?
Probably one of the best ways to do it is on my Facebook page. It's Brandon Dunn, Pro Rodeo Barrelman and Entertainer. They can always just message me on there, and all my contact info is on that. And we can talk about rodeo, or we can talk about Jesus, or all aspects in between.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you for taking the time to have a conversation with me. I am so grateful and so blessed by being able to go all the way around the arena today.
Well, thank you, Farley.
All right. Reach out to Brandon on his Facebook page if you have any questions for him. And as always, I will see you down the road. Thank you for listening to the Rider's Edge podcast today. We appreciate your time and attention. Thank you for always helping us move the conversation forward. If you liked today's podcast, please help us keep the conversations going by subscribing to this podcast, and consider leaving us a review so others can find us and join in on the conversations. You can also find more information by checking us out on our social media channels, including Facebook at Riders Edge Therapy and Wellness, Instagram at Riders Edge Therapy, and our website, www.ridersedgetherapy.com. It is there that you can book a consult for either you or your horse. Thank you, and as always, we will see you down the road.